Hi guys, my name is Barry and welcome back to the channel. You're probably wondering where I am. I'm actually in the podcast studio Glasgow and I've got my friend here, Callum, who's also got a YouTube channel called Pop Culture Patter. Say hello, Callum.
Hello, how you doing?
All right. So Callum's with me today. I'm going to be talking about the retcons in the Halloween franchise. We're not really going to be saying what we would do differently or anything like that. We're just going to discuss all the retcons. I previously done it with Scream and some of the Scream videos, and I thought because there's actually quite a bit of retcons in the Halloween franchise, I want to go through them all. There are some retcons in the franchise that are to do with the timelines, but we'll discuss them as and when they come. But we're going to start with the first retcon that we've got. So there are some exceptions. For example, the Thorn trilogy and the Thorn storyline, that wouldn't be classed as a retcon because it's a continuation of the Halloween story. So for example, it's building up that story of Michael Myers, building up extra things on top of that. It doesn't take away things that happened before. So the Thorn storyline wouldn't really be classed as a retcon because it doesn't change anything from the past. It only elaborates more on basically Michael Myers, etc. So things like that just wouldn't count. So the first retcon is from Halloween 2, which is Laurie and Michael being related. So they're now brother and sister. The reason it's a retcon is because it was never mentioned in Halloween 1. So they had to give them a reason for Michael to come back after Laurie strode in the same night. And the retcon is brother and sister. Yep. Did you see, obviously, when you first time you saw the movie, did you understand that they were that they weren't brother and sister in the first one?
I didn't understand that they were brother and sister in the first one. I didn't get anything other than Rob Zombie's Halloween, where they kind of were like made it quite apparent that was the case. But which is how I got back into Halloween, was through Rob Zombie's Halloween. I'd obviously seen the original, and I got the DVD Halloween, Rob Zombie's Halloween, in around 2007, and that spurred me back into looking back the way and going watching all the movies, and where my love of Halloween really came from. I always loved it from seeing it as a young kid, but this time I got to go and see it as a kind of teenager and have those eyes. But it's always been a kind of hindrance to the storyline of Halloween, isn't it? The brother and sister angle, because a lot of people either like it or don't like it. It's very controversial to what opinion you have. For me, it added another layer into two because it explained a little bit why he was coming after her. I kind of liked it, and it made the H2O much more better, made the new series much better. Well, obviously 2018 didn't have the storyline of brother and sister, but yeah, I was kind of not annoyed that they didn't continue that, but I quite like what they did in terms of, Dave had said, "Oh, wasn't it your brother that killed up some guys?" And they were like, they just shut it down. I quite liked that, and it was a good way to be like, right, we're not doing that.
We're not doing that angle.
But yeah, I've always kind of enjoyed the brother-sister angle. What about yourself?
It's the same with me. Like when I first watched Halloween 1 and 2, I watched them back to back. So I didn't even think that part 1 didn't include them being brother and sister. I always assumed they were brother and sister. I don't know why. It was only when I got a little bit older, like maybe 11, 12, when I was watching it, I was like, they never mentioned that they're related. They only mentioned that they're related in Halloween 2. And I think there was the TV cut of Halloween 1 where they added in some things that they were brother and sister, but I didn't see that cut.
No.
I only saw the original cut. So there was no mention of them being brother and sister. So when it came to Halloween 2, I think it was maybe a good idea because it kind of brought them together. There's a reason that he's after her now, whereas before he wasn't. But I think that's the beauty of the first one and why the retcon might not work for Halloween 2, because what's scarier, going after your brother or sister, which is scary anyway, or just being random. Like, I'm going after random people and it doesn't matter who you are, you're in trouble. So I think that's quite scary in itself. So I think the retcon, although it's a retcon, I don't think it really works.
No, and it's kind of that hindrance that I'm talking about is that the Halloween franchise has kind of had to rely on the Laurie Strode saga the whole time. Basically, with it being acknowledged that they're brother and sister, once they made that decision, that's them tied into it.
That's it. They've tied it down now, so the story is only great if Laurie's involved.
Whereas if it was just a one-off that Michael just happened to come across Laurie that night, and then at the end and went in a completely different direction, they maybe had him, killing other people in Haddonfield and didn't have to address Laurie at all. Maybe that might have benefited the Halloween franchise because you're not so tied down to Laurie Strode.
Yeah.
But then again, it's given us the franchise that we know and love, that we wouldn't have had H2O, we wouldn't have had 2018 Kills and Ends, So it's interesting.
Yeah, definitely.
I kind of always thought that maybe Michael saw a bit of his sister in Laurie, and that's why he was going after her. She kind of reminded him of her, and that's maybe why he wanted to go after her. But
see, I think that's a better idea.
Yeah.
Because he obviously killed his sister in 1963, and maybe he sees Laurie kind of resembles her, even though she doesn't, but we didn't really see his sister up close.
Yeah.
We only saw her from the window and then up in the stairs. So she could just remind him of his sister, and that's good enough.
Yeah.
But adding in that, she's also your sister, you then have to try and explain in your own head, right? So you adopted and all this kind of thing. So it's, I don't know. I think it was too elaborate for something that was so simple to begin with.
And I think it's quite funny that in the 78 film, Michael's mum and dad seemed very normal. They seemed like just your own parents, you know what I mean? Whereas obviously in Rob Zombie's Halloween, they wanted it to look like it was a broken home and had that kind of toxic father figure and Will Forsyth's character, is that what's his name?
Will Forsyth, yeah.
Yeah.
He's like the boyfriend.
I fucking loved. I thought his banter was hilarious in it for me.
Bit over the top there. You made a good point of Michael's parents being normal. Like, they looked like older parents. They also had Michael, who was 6 years old, and his sister, who was 16. There would be no reason for them to get rid of Laurie Strode. Yeah. Like, why would you give her away?
Yeah.
Like, you're living in a nice home, you're decent parents, you've already got 2 kids of your own. It's not like they had Laurie when they were like 16 years old, 17 years old. They're older parents. They wouldn't just give their youngest daughter away.
Unless they have Laurie to fill the void in Michael, because Michael's been taken away to the kind of child psychiatry, and they're trying to fill that perfect home.
But then what did they do with her after that? Because they need
That's true.
They need to give her away again.
They need to give her away. Yeah, that's a good point.
So because of if it happened before, then fair enough. But she was born, like, in what year was she born? 1961.
Yeah.
So
we could have had Michael come back and kill his parents.
So she was 2 years old when Michael done this in 1963.
Yeah.
So where was she?
I know. Oh, that's it. We didn't hear no baby screaming.
No.
There was no babysitter there. I suppose Michael's sister would have been of age. Yeah.
But because they never mentioned that, then it's officially a retcon.
Yeah, that's true.
So next up, we've got the Halloween 4, the beginning of Halloween 4. We've now got Dr. Loomis and Michael Myers back again. As you know, at the end of Halloween 2, or you're supposed to know, that Michael and Loomis died at the end of Halloween 2, which was quite a powerful scene because Loomis finally defeated Michael, but he had to kill himself to do that.
Yep.
So bringing them back, I can understand why they've done it, because you can't really have a Halloween movie without Michael Myers at this point.
Yeah.
And we noticed that from Season of the Witch. So you have to bring Michael Myers back. But if you bring Michael Myers back and he survives what he'd done in Halloween 2, then why not Dr. Loomis?
Yeah.
You know, and I think Dr. Loomis, outside Michael Myers, is probably the most interesting and best character of the Halloween franchise. So as much as it is unrealistic, it was probably the best way to go with Halloween. What do you think of Loomis?
I love Loomis, yeah. I think they didn't do enough with him. They kind of, at the end of 2, when I think that was the vision, to be like 1 and 2, and that was done.
Yeah.
Whereas they obviously thought, we need to have Loomis back because he's an interesting character. The fans all love him. They probably needed that for that Michael dynamic as well, somebody who knows him inside and out. But I like the idea of, you need to take my head and I'll take yours, and that's what happened in 2. So I loved it. But then again, I didn't think of anything when he came back in 4. I didn't think, wait a minute, you were in an explosion.
Exactly,
I just accepted it.
I was the exact same, similar to the brother-sister thing. I was just like, but because we already know the movie existed, by the time we watched them, we just accepted that, yeah, he's supposed to survive. It's absolutely normal for somebody to survive something like that. But watching it as an adult, you're like, I mean, that looks like that was supposed to be the end of Dr. Loomis and Michael Myers, what's happening here. But again, if you want to make another Halloween film with Michael Myers, bring Loomis back.
Yeah.
You know, I think if I was an adult back then, I would want Loomis to come back, if anybody.
Yeah.
So I can understand why they've done it. So I can't really understand how I would feel at the time it happened, because I was only a kid at the time. But I'm sure that adults who were our age now, back then, would go, do you know what, that was the best option out of all the options that they would have had back then, you know.
And I quite like that Loomis is almost similar to Michael, and you don't know an awful lot about him.
Yeah.
There wasn't a lot explained at that time. So there was definitely more to explore in him, that they didn't go down that route.
Well, did you know, with the history of Dr. Loomis, that we don't know, like you said, when he was on the phone, I don't know if you remember this scene. See, when he was on the phone in Halloween 1, he finds the Phelps van and the coveralls, and he goes onto the phone box and he's like, Michael Myers is on his way. That was initially supposed to be him on the phone to his wife. And then they changed it a little bit to being on the phone to somebody else.
Right.
I think it might have been Dr. Wynn. But they changed that. And they also made Dr. Loomis, like you said, mysterious. We don't know enough about Dr. Loomis. Has he got a wife? Has he got kids? We don't know.
Has anybody ever questioned that? That's a question for your audience, because, you know, Halloween franchise is Michael Myers' franchise, but I would say Loomis is a big part of that. And again, we don't know an awful lot about him.
And now that we know who Michael Myers is, now that we know he's got a sister, now that we know his reasons behind what he's doing, Dr. Loomis is now the more mysterious character.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Interesting.
Yeah, you called it.
So next up, we've got Halloween H2O, which is technically a timeline reboot instead of a retcon, but it's also technically a retcon as well, because they're removing certain aspects of the previous films, but they're also not saying there is not a sequel to Halloween 4, 5 and 6. They're just not acknowledging them. So you could squeeze in those movies into it. And I think the first draft of H2O did have all those films included in it. So we'll include it in this video because it is technically a retcon. So we're talking about Laurie Strode not being dead. She faked her death, whereas they kind of acknowledged that she died in Halloween 4 with Jamie saying that my mum died and Jamie being there. Whereas in this one, there is no Jamie in sight. And it's similar to what happened in Halloween 1 and 2, whereas Michael's parents, what did they do with Laurie? And it's the same with this one. What did Laurie do with Jamie?
Yeah.
Jamie no longer exists.
Exactly. Is it she faked her death and she's like, I've got this kid, and she's almost kind of following that same footsteps as her parents. Obviously her parents, we didn't know anything about the parents, but like giving away a kid, they would have had to have done that at some point. But yeah, that would have been an interesting way to tie it in, and maybe Josh Hartnett's character could have been another kid from when she was an alcoholic. She was just shagging about, you know, like, sorry, can we swear on this?
We can swear.
Okay. I don't know if the algorithms would stop. But yeah, Josh Hartnett could be like a bastard child almost. And she does have this other kid. Could tie into the story, and I don't know where they would go with it, or whether I would want to see it, but it's certainly an avenue they could have explored.
The good thing is, they don't say who the dad is with Josh Hartnett's character. They also don't say who the dad is for Jamie, I don't believe.
No, they don't.
So they could be twins.
That's true.
You know, like, and see if they just said something like, if, say, Laurie said to John, oh, your sister would have done that, or rest in peace, your sister, kind of thing. Yeah. That would just go, oh, that's fine.
Aye.
You know?
You've sorted the retcon straight away.
But by doing that, and I think that's just why this is more of a complete scrap than a retcon, is by acknowledging that she existed, you're also going to have to acknowledge the whole Thorn.
Yeah. Yeah.
So then you're trying to, with H2O, it's a more grounded movie. It's more realistic. They've tried to get away from the whole supernatural elements. So acknowledging Jamie would be acknowledging that the franchise was going to crap at that point. So this retcon is probably the most important retcon in the franchise, because at this point in time, the Halloween franchise was going straight to video. You know, Halloween, The Curse of Michael Myers was straight to video for a lot of places in the world.
Yeah.
And their plan for Halloween 7 was the next one's going straight to video. No cinematic releases anywhere in the world until Jamie Lee Curtis said, it's nearly 20 years. Let's do something big.
Yeah.
So, and I did mention that in another video about Laurie Strode. So, yeah, this is probably the most important retcon of all, because without this retcon and scrap of the timeline before, we wouldn't have the new trilogy, because it would have been gone and forgotten by now.
Yeah.
And nobody would be interested in it.
Yeah.
You know? So I think it's a good one.
And would you have had Jamie Lloyd apart H2O, or would you just have that acknowledgement of her that she's no longer with us? Would that have done it for you?
I don't even think, I think they've done the right thing. I think not acknowledging it at all makes you question it yourself.
Meh.
Did she exist? Did they ones exist? Because they didn't really say they didn't exist.
Yeah.
And they didn't say they did. So it's clever, the way they've done it, because they don't acknowledge it, but they also don't acknowledge that they didn't exist.
Yeah.
I think that would have been the best way to do it. Because back then, there was no big call for reboots and scrapping of different timelines. That didn't really exist back then, unless it was the Texas Chainsaw Massacre. So it wasn't a popular thing. So and they knew it. They probably thought our audiences still liked the previous films, so we won't completely scrap them. Let's just not acknowledge them, and that's it.
I'm glad that they, in 2018, they completely just was like, this is a direct sequel to 1. Everything after that is not existent. Because, you know, if they had a sequel to H2O, it would be a bit unbelievable. 20 years later, and then 40 years later, it's like, what does Michael need 20 years to plan? You know, like, I'm glad they avoided that with the new trilogy, David Gordon Green's trilogy.
Yeah. The next one on the list is from Halloween Resurrection, and probably the most ridiculous one, and that is with Michael Myers not getting his head chopped off at the end of Halloween H2O. With the end of H2O, that to me was the perfect ending to Michael Myers, and the most surprising ending to Michael Myers. If they ended it that way, that would have been it. But as we know, money talks.
Yeah.
And because Halloween H2 was so successful, they had to bring a sequel out. But how could they do that without sounding too over elaborate? Well, they can't, because they had to be over elaborate to make Michael survive.
Yeah.
And it turns out it was a paramedic, and they say that this was a plan all along. You know, we had this idea, and they probably did have the idea, but they weren't going to run with it until they realised how successful H2O was. What do you think of that retcon?
It's one of those ones that, you know, that you had the perfect ending there, and then it's obviously Mustafa Akkad's got that. I think he had a clause that he had to make sure that if Michael was killed, it was able to get brought back. Well, yeah, but
urban legend.
Yeah, I just felt that was a chance to do something different, and completely start again almost. But again, Hollywood, they want money. They want, when something does well, automatically gets a sequel, and you can tell that whole movie was just somebody's idea that day, and that's what they went with, you know.
And that's it. It's so dated as well. Like, it was of its time. I know most movies are of their time, but that time came and went so fast with technology, like the whole Big Brother style cameras and stuff.
Yeah,
that was just for a small period of our lives. And when you watch it, you're like, oh, it's like a 6 months period of our lives in one film, and it's so dated and bad. Yeah. And it's so cringy.
That's like Michael going into Love Island. You know what I mean?
They probably would do that now if they could.
It's just all the other horror icons are trying to get matched up with like other horror icons.
The thing is, it's mostly all guys though, isn't it? So
that's true. Yeah.
They'll be sitting single waiting for somebody to come in like, hello.
That could be an interesting. No, don't do that. If anybody watches this, don't do that. But yeah, very much of its time. We had Big Brother out of reality TV shows. It's kind of when like I kind of say culture went a bit edgy as well. You know, everything like Jackass was out, Eminem, you know, Limp Bizkit. You know, it was like very early 2000s.
Yeah, but when you say that though, that sounds very good and nostalgic though. I like those days.
Yeah.
You know, but it's just weird that when you watch films from those days that have that implemented in it, you're like, ooh, it's quite dated.
And I think, would Resurrection work in another franchise? It's not Halloween. Would it work if it was another horror icon that they're trapped in a house with a guy? Is it maybe just because we love Michael so much that it doesn't work in because of the way it panned out?
Yeah.
But would it work in another franchise?
100%. I think it would work in the Saw franchise.
But there you go.
You know,
yeah.
the camera's going, shh, I want to play a game. That kind of stuff.
That's a great shout, by the way.
But I think when Resurrection came out, there was no real want for remakes at the time. There's no real want for reboots at the time. So at the time, the only ideas they could really have is, we need to make a sequel.
Yeah.
Because they don't have that idea of rebooting it or changing the timelines or anything. They just think, let's just sequel it.
And then again, it would just be another film of Michael chasing after Laurie.
Yeah.
So it's like, how do you do it? That's the problem with sequels. It's very, very difficult to do.
I don't mind them killing Laurie in Resurrection, but they didn't do it in a good way.
No.
You know?
And it sounded like Jamie Lee didn't want to do it at all as well.
She was getting paid $5 million for that 2 scenes.
Yeah.
So she's like, I don't give a crap what you're doing. I'll do that scene and get out of here.
Yeah, and she's probably the best thing in that movie.
Yeah, absolutely.
You know? It was very strange route to go down with her, but it's happened. It's history.
Yeah.
It's all in the past,
I
as
think
they say.
So the next one is Rob Zombie's Halloween. And again, it's technically is and isn't a retcon, because it isn't a retcon because it's a remake, so they can do what they want. But it's also a retcon because Rob Zombie took the original idea and retconned the original elements to it. So, for example, the first 40 minutes is Michael Myers being young, talking, and he has a full backstory of the build-up to becoming the Michael Myers that we all know and love.
Yeah.
So the retcon that. I know that you do really like Rob Zombie's Halloween, don't you?
Yeah, I have a weird affiliation with it.
What do you think of the retcon in that then, of understanding the reasons behind what he does?
Yeah, I liked it. And I know I'm not going to get any good comments from this, but like...
No, you will, because I really shit on Rob Zombie's movies a lot.
Right.
And people hate me for it.
Oh.
So you're the voice of reason for them.
Yeah, I mean, it's quite understandable, I get it. But for me, I'd obviously seen the original Halloween when I was a young kid, and that had always stuck in my memory. Fast forward to 2007, probably 2008, maybe by the time I saw it, because I don't think I went to the cinema to see the first one. I definitely went to see the second one at the cinema, and that's a different experience. But I got the DVD, so DVDs normally used to come out like 6 months to a year later, yeah. So it would have been around about that time. Big into buying DVDs, and I saw Rob Zombie's Halloween, and I'd obviously been a big fan of The Devil's Rejects.
Yeah,
I loved that. So, and the House of a Thousand Corpses, and I liked a bit of Rob Zombie at that point. And the backstory, I thought it worked for me because I'm kind of interested in how somebody gets to the point of Michael Myers. You know what I mean? What's the story there? I understand a lot of us, and I do include myself in this, that we don't need a backstory for Michael Myers. I think the mysterious is what makes him scary, and uncertainty. But when they gave us the backstory, I liked it. I liked the world. I liked the way it was shot. I liked the way it looked. I thought it was very, very interesting. I think cramming the first film into the last 20 odd minutes didn't work.
Yeah.
So I don't know if they could have done something different there, whereas they could almost have played it, this is a prequel to 1978, yeah. But it didn't go down that route. They wanted it to be a reboot. But again, it was different because you were getting a backstory. Does it work? Probably not.
Yeah. I'm torn with the first Halloween, Rob Zombie's Halloween, because when he's an adult, from that moment on to the end, I thought it was great.
Yeah.
I thought it was quite scary and intense. But then the first 40 minutes or so with him as a child, I'm like, this isn't a Halloween film. This is just another film. I don't want to know anything about Michael Myers as a kid. That's what makes him mysterious.
Yeah.
But what I found out about him was great if it wasn't Michael Myers.
Yeah.
You know, if it was a different film and a different story, that would work brilliantly. And even that little kid resembles and could have been Otis Firefly from the Devil's Rejects.
Yeah.
That could have been his backstory.
Yeah.
You know,
That would have been cool.
that would have been a good Devil's Rejects movie. And the build up to them becoming adults and being what they are.
Yeah.
So something like that would have been good. So I think Rob Zombie had a good story there.
Yeah.
Just in the wrong franchise.
Well, that's it. Take Halloween out of it. Would you enjoy it? Yes, you would enjoy that movie because it is pretty much a decent movie. You know, if you take Halloween out of it.
Yeah. Now that you've just said that, that's almost the same feelings I have for Season of the Witch. I hated it as a kid because it didn't feel like a Halloween film.
Yeah.
But watching it as Season of the Witch and not Halloween, it's great.
Yeah.
Same with Rob Zombie's Halloween. Watching that as a non-Halloween film, the first 40 minutes, it's great. Good story, good backstory. And then watching it as a remake of Halloween, it almost feels similar to Gus Van Sant's Psycho from 1998, where it's a shot-for-shot remake. You know, it's pointless, but it's still interesting. I still wanted to see it because I knew what was going to happen.
Yeah.
There was no twists and turns. So that's why I have a love-hate for Halloween, Rob Zombie's Halloween, because it's good, but something we've seen before and something that doesn't belong in the Halloween franchise.
Yeah, I think maybe if it was like a Jeffrey Dahmer type situation, that before you were a serial killer, what it's like.
I just want to watch a movie.
Yeah, but like, I still enjoyed it for what it was, and I don't know if it's because my cinema education when I was 17 was just, this is fucking amazing to every film I saw.
I was the exact same. Loved everything.
So, you know, but I still go back and watch it every Halloween, and, you know, I cannot watch 2. I cannot watch Rob Zombie's Halloween 2. There's very few moments that are good in that, which I don't know what the fuck he was going for, what drugs he was taking at that time, but it was like a weird drug trip. I can remember the opening, sorry to go off topic, but like in the cinema seeing Halloween 2 and it's in the hospital, and I thought, right, they're going for it here.
Like
he's
the
stalking
original
around the
Halloween 2,
hospital, and I was like, this could be amazing, and then it was just a dream.
Yeah.
And
Or was
like,
that a dream?
Or was it?
They never explained if it was a dream or not.
Yeah.
That's random.
But yeah, no, I've always got love for Rob Zombie's Halloween. So yeah, sorry in the comments if you're going to hate me for that, but you know,
that's good. That's
what opinions are for. The most thing I love about Halloween, Rob Zombie's Halloween, that is Scout Taylor Compton. I had a massive crush and still do.
Do you know? Are you going to say something?
No, I was just going to say, I know she's just getting married recently, but if that goes tits up, Scout, call me.
Just before that film started filming, I watched it in a film. I shouldn't have watched this because I was like 20 at the time. Was it called The Sleepover? I knew who she was, and then after that film, she went missing in real life. I don't know if you know this, but she went missing for ages. She was actually reported missing and presumably dead because she went missing for so long. I don't think there was ever a reason for it. I think she maybe just was a runaway for a while, but she came back and then started acting again.
Wow.
So it was just so bizarre. And then the first thing that I knew she was in since she went missing was Halloween. I was like, oh, they found her.
Yeah.
Because she's acting again. So that's so bizarre. But also, I met her last year.
Oh, man.
Did you see the photograph I posted?
Did, yeah.
Yeah, that was great. And she, do you know, she's so nice.
Yeah.
And she's absolutely stunning.
Oh, God, yeah.
Probably the most beautiful actress in the Halloween franchise.
Yeah.
Or one of them at least. But she's amazing though. She's so down to earth. I remember, she would deny this anyway, but I remember before I got my photograph of her, I walked past her and she smiled at me as if, oh, you're a handsome guy, even though she probably didn't. But I was like, oh my God, she's absolutely amazing.
Just hit her with that Scottish patter as well.
But she's beautiful. She's unbelievable. She's so nice. But yeah,
I was kind of hoping she was going to go to For the Love of Horror, but I think that was last year, wasn't it?
Yeah, that's when I met her.
And was Daniel Harris there as well?
She was there, yeah. So her and Scout were there. Both of them are beautiful. Both of them are amazing. And I got my photograph with them. You know, you don't know if you should hold on to them when you get the photograph.
Yeah.
They were the ones that grabbed onto me.
Oh,
so I thought,
brilliant.
okay, that's fine. So you don't really want to touch people that don't want touched.
Sorry, you were fully consenting of that.
Yep, they said, on you, in you come, and they were amazing. So I had the time of my life.
They're the words I dream to hear from Scout Taylor Compton.
Yeah.
And you come.
Yeah. There you go. So next we're going to move on to Halloween 2018, and it's a similar vibe to Halloween H2O and Rob Zombie's Halloween in 2007, in that it is a retcon because they're retconning what's happened before, but at the same time it's a reboot. But the good thing about Halloween 2018 to be classed as a retcon is not only is it a reboot, but they are retconning things to the point where they're removing Halloween 2 and saying that they're no longer brother and sister again, so they're going back to the original, whereas they're not related.
Yeah.
So we'll talk about that part mostly because that's the real reason that Laurie Strode is back, because she didn't die. And also that's the only way that Jamie Lee Curtis would come back, as if they'd done something completely different. So how do you feel about that retcon?
Yeah, as I said earlier, I quite like it. I loved the scene with Dave and Alison, and Dave's a character that doesn't get enough time in that movie. And
He's great.
That's the one thing about, I know going off topic again, about David Gordon Green's characters, is they're all fantastic. Absolutely loved Dave.
Do you know who Dave is in real life?
Yeah, he's is he not Tim Robbins'
Tim
son?
Robbins and Susan Sarandon's son.
Yeah, mad, innit? And I loved Little John and Big John. For me, that and Kills saved Kills for me.
Yeah, I think so too.
I absolutely loved that dynamic. The characters that he builds, they don't do anything with, but I wanted more from them.
Yeah.
I could have easily been happy to see more of Dave. But yeah, they're walking along and he kind of says,
Wasn't it her brother who like cold-blooded mutilated all those teenagers?
No.
and she's like, no, that was just something they made up. That was great because they kind of nipped it in the bud and they were like, no, we're going in a different direction here. We don't need to have all this faff backstory of it's not the brother and sister relationship anymore.
It's perfect the way they've done it, and especially adding it in the trailer as well, which was good.
Aye.
Let us know.
Yeah, and I thought that was a really good way to do it. And yeah, I like the idea of, you know, he wasn't after Laurie. It was just circumstantial, which I thought that would be the case. You know what I mean? Like if a serial killer just woke up one day and was just like, right, you're the closest person to me, I'm going to kill you, kind of thing. Like that totally works. So yeah, I was completely fine with it.
Yeah, I mean, I think it works in the context of not being related to her. I think there's certain things you could change, which we would do in another video.
Yeah.
But the fact that he's not related to her now can confirm that he won't remember her.
Yeah.
He shouldn't remember her. You know, I don't remember people. There's certain things that's happened to me when I was a kid. I've been attacked as a kid.
Really?
I remember the person that's attacked me, but I can guarantee you they won't remember me.
Yeah.
And the reason that they won't remember me is because I walked past them loads of times after it.
Fuck.
Months after it.
Jesus.
You know, so they don't remember that. So I don't think Michael Myers in this realistic world would remember Laurie Strode. He'd be like, who the hell are you?
No, and plus it's 40 years later.
Exactly. He's getting older as well, his mind.
Aye. No, it could be dealing with dementia or anything, you know. But no, I like the fact that they didn't have it brother sister thing. We're lucky to have so many films in the franchise that they did have that storyline at one point. This doesn't, you know. We get both sides of the coin.
Yeah.
You know what I mean, that's what I liked about it.
Yeah.
But yeah, but you don't necessarily need to have that relationship there. I quite like the aspect of it just being circumstantial, and she happened to be there that night.
So the last one will involve Halloween Kills and Ends together, because without Halloween 2018, there wouldn't be a Halloween Kills and Ends. And basically what I'm trying to say is the end of Halloween 2018 was sort of like a finale, because they did give us an end without giving us a true end. A better ending in terms of you could go somewhere with it than H2O, because H2O was guaranteed. So whatever they bring out after H2O would have been ridiculous. Whereas 2018, they left it open so that if it was successful, then they could go ahead and write Kills and Ends.
Yeah.
And that's exactly what happened. Halloween 2018 was the most successful slasher movie of all time. It made $255 million at the box office on a $10 million budget. You know, it probably cost maybe $10 million marketing, so that's $20 million in total. cinemas take 50% of the cut. So Halloween, to be successful, had to make just over $40 million. And it made $255 million. So that just says, let's green light the next two movies and make it a trilogy. And that's what they've done. 2019, they announced, we're going to do a trilogy. Kills and Ends is coming out. So in essence, 2018's ending is probably a bit of a retcon because the last time we saw Michael, he was standing looking up at the girls and saying, look, I'm dying here, look at me.
Yeah.
But then they kind of retconned that in Kills to say he actually went to the gun locker and closed himself in. So in essence, he would probably look more burnt in Kills if he was standing there for a good while, because he was, you know, when he was burning. And then with Kills, he's in the gun locker. So they kind of changed it. Do you think that was the case?
Yeah. I also thought the gun locker was cleared out and like it looked much bigger in Kills than it was in
so that's a retcon in itself.
Yeah. and I'm like, they've probably sat in a room thinking, how can we get a guy in a basement that's burning to death? How can we keep him alive? You know what I mean? Because even smoke, inhaling smoke and stuff like that, but if you think about a shutter going down, that's a good way to keep it out. The smoke would still come under the shutter. It's not like a proper security gate, you know? Like,
I think by giving us, showing us how he's survived that, it makes us question it. See if they just said he survived and you're not going to find out how.
Yeah.
That'd be like, whoa, that's good.
Yeah.
Not knowing is probably better.
And that's the thing that they could have easily just had the first half of Kills him not be about at all. And you're like, well, what the fuck happened to Michael? You know what I mean? It's just not addressed.
Where is
and then
he
he just shows up. But no, I was kind of, when I knew they were doing the sequel, I thought, how the fuck are they going to get out of that one?
Yeah.
And I didn't even click Fireman. And that, I didn't even think. And when I got that, I was like, this is brilliant. I just wish it wasn't in the trailer. But I know it kind of has to be, because that's probably what got people bums on seats.
People are like, I want to know how he survives and then I'll go and see the movie.
Yeah, and I hate movie trailers. I would genuinely go and see a Star Wars movie if it just said Star Wars in bold letters, coming soon. I would generally go and see something like that.
Yeah.
I wouldn't be bothered about seeing trailers. It'd be the same for Halloween. I'd be there anyway. They had to get out of it somehow, didn't they?
Yeah, but again, like I said, it was an easier get out than something like H2O.
Yeah.
Where you cut his head off.
Yeah.
Like, how do you get out of that? And then it's something stupid. Whereas 18, they were more smart about it, because I think they done a alternate ending where he was dying in the woods.
Oh, right.
He died against a tree.
Oh, yeah, that's right, yeah.
Well, they filmed it, but they filmed it in a way where, did he die at the tree because he just stopped and then the breathing stopped?
Yeah.
And then it cut. So even at that, you can still do a sequel if you really wanted to. Whereas this one was more epic, I would say, with the flames coming past him.
Yeah.
And I thought that was great. Just watching him, like, he's finally been caught. It's giving me goosebumps right now.
Yeah.
It gave me goosebumps. I'm like, wow, that's a good ending.
Did you not feel super sorry for him when he was looking at you with those puppy dog eyes?
Yep.
And you're like, oh, my boy. You're like, oh, you're gone now, pal. Sorry.
He's probably standing there thinking, I don't even know who you are, and you're killing me. Jail.
He's probably just staring at his space, being like, I don't even know what's going on. But
it's quite warm in here.
I felt so sorry for him, which was a unique experience in itself, because you're like, no, you obviously want this guy to die, but you're kind of like, he just looked so sad, and he almost looked as if, I know the mask is expressionless, but it gave you so much. It gave his
emotion as well,
because you kind of thought like, oh, she's got me. Okay, cool. I respect her, she's got me.
Well played, Hen, whoever you are. Well played.
Yeah, well done. And that's what I got from it, just from an emotionless mask.
Yeah.
So I love James Jude Courtney as well.
Yeah, he's really good.
Absolutely quality guy.
Yeah, so I think the main part of the retcon for Kills and Ends, I would say, is the fact that he's now in a gun locker.
Yeah.
You know, that's it. That's really the only thing I can think of.
It just was a different locker. You know that way.
Well, the gun locker looked like maybe half the depth of that table.
Yeah, to get a big 6'4", I don't know if he's that tall, but 6'2" plus, let's say. I don't know how tall Michael Myers is, but
obviously you get the guns coming out.
Yeah,
so you can't push the guns in.
It also looked like it was a half shelf, so it looked as if like in 2008. Sorry, I'm not speaking at the mic. 2018 looked like it was just half a wall.
Yeah,
that had the guns on it, so
and
it
then
didn't look like
would have drawers and stuff, maybe.
Yeah, aye. So they didn't think that one through.
Yeah, well, they did, and then that was the only retcon. So, yeah.
Yeah. And then all those firemen died, which a lot of people were pissed off about, but it looked fucking
I
cool.
myself to die. So that's all the retcons that I can personally think of. I don't know if you had any other ones that you thought of, Callum, but if you've thought of any other retcons that you think is definitely a retcon, then leave them down below and we can discuss that. But like I said, things like the Thorn is not a retcon because it's a continuation of a story. It doesn't change anything. So when you introduce the Thorn, for example, it doesn't take away anything from what happened before.
No.
Because it didn't explain Michael before. So you're not re-explaining anything with the Thorn, although I hate it.
Yeah.
They're not changing anything from the past, so it wouldn't technically be classed as a retcon. But if I have forgotten anything, then please let me know down below and then we can get discussing it. It was a great experience having somebody on eventually. I spoke to Callum before the video that I only ever had my son on with me before, which was obviously he's just a kid. So having another adult talking about something I can bounce back off, it's been great. What's your experience been like?
It's been a huge honour for me, as I said, and you know personally that I've watched this channel for a long, long time. So it's weird to me that I'm here and that we are friends. You know, it's very, very strange. It's almost like you're pals with a celebrity. But
you want my autograph?
Exactly.
No, joking.
But no, thank you very much for this. Is the first time anybody's invited me on to do something. So
I'm glad I'm the first.
I really appreciate it. And yeah, I love this channel. Hurry up and get Barry to 50,000 subscribers. That's a warning.
Yeah. No pressure, guys. Anyway, guys, thanks a lot for watching. Thanks for subscribing. And I'll talk to you soon. Bye-bye.
I'll be right back.
What are you waiting for, huh?
Coming to get you, Barbara.
Ever played Skin the Cat?
Someone's in the back!